We're living. Now we're living.
We're very alive.
Living now.
Welcome back, you guys. You are in for such a treat because today I sat down with Susan Aposhyan herself, one of the founders of somatic psychology, and she is not only so incredibly smart and wise and awesome and legendary, but she's also so funny, and she was cracking me up throughout this episode. So I hope that as you listen, you also laugh along, and I hope that you learn a lot. And whether you're new to somatic psychology and you have no idea what that even is or what embodiment is, or you've been studying it for the past however many years, I hope that you learn a lot today. And Susan walks us through an embodiment practice, and I hope that you do it along with us and get to actually feel what we're talking about, not just conceptually understand it, but get to feel it in your body. And don't forget to follow the podcast and send this to somebody who you think will enjoy.
Her energy was already coming to me as I was preparing for this, and I was like, okay, I'll just show up.
Well, hopefully it works.
So I hope that listeners who have no idea what embodiment is, no idea about any of these concepts that I am pretty deeply entrenched in, they get a little taste of that today. Mm-hmm.
Well, that makes me think of your name, Glowing.
Mm-hmm.
Because one cannot glow without a lot of embodiment happening.
Mm-hmm.
Whether you relate to the idea of embodiment or not, that's just the deal. That's how it works. If you're a living organism, you need to be embodied to glow.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Totally.
if your listeners and viewers are interested in glowing, then embodiment will help you.
Mm-hmm. Right. And what is embodiment? I know it's a question that you define and answer all the time, but right now.
Well, embodiment literally means to manifest in the body, ... whatever's going on in the mind, in the energy field. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that all the other creatures on the planet are really good at, and they do 99.9 never-ending % of the time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And most newborn infants are doing it fully, again, 99 point whatever. If they haven't been harmed in utero or during birth, they're doing it. Even if they have been mildly harmed, they're doing it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then slowly we enculturate ourselves out of it.
Mm.
Cultures that have less structured educational cultural values, people stay embodied.
Mm-hmm.
So my assumption is that when we were hunters and gatherers, which depending on where you demarcate your species, has been at least 250,000 years.
Mm-hmm.
We were fully embodied like everybody else on the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And then 10,000 years ago, when we started agriculture and animal husbandry, for lack of a better term, we started getting into more rigid ways of being.
Mm.
And, that was a tiny bit, and then it's escalating. Even in my lifetime, the difference between when I was a child and what my grandchildren are doing, are living with. Our culture is very much about denaturalizing humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And we're losing heart, and it's happening all around the planet. So even though we're leading the charge in many ways, it seems like human nature. I think we've entered adolescence as a species. And so we're kind of destroying ourselves as adolescents are wont to do. You know, it's like, oh, if I bang this hard, what happens? You know,
Look at me and my freedom.
and I'm not going to be like you. So if by some miracle we survived this adolescence, you know, which, I mean, I remember as an adolescent thinking I was going to die in my 30s. You know, I just couldn't imagine, you know, and then you look back and you think, wow, that's amazing. I lived through all that, you know, and all the adolescents that I've raised or been close to, you know, it's like you just hold your breath and hope, you know. So if we make it through our species adolescence without destroying our habitat, our home, our beautiful planet, that would be really exciting.
I love how your optimism about that is also really dark. I love talking about the big picture, humanity's direction. And so the way that you just put that we're in our species adolescence, it makes so much sense. There's a lot of people getting more in touch with their spiritual ability, their psychic abilities, and connecting more with the heart. And at the same time, like you said, there are a lot of people just completely going numb, not caring, just kind of bearing down. And
yeah, and both are increasing at the same time, you know. And so where are we going to land?
Yeah.
I mean, we can laugh about it, or we can cry about it, or we can trust one of these directionalities or another, which, I mean, they're both happening clearly, so we should trust that.
Yeah. When you said, I was just thinking neutrality. When you said we can laugh about it or we can cry about it, and I actually feel like holding both of those things at the same time is really cathartic for me. Doing
Cathartic.
both. Yeah. And helps me stay neutral about it.
Yeah.
Not go to one side or the other too much.
Well, I think that's the nature of maturity, you know. So saying that as a 20-something, I don't know how old you are, that's a very rare ability, you know. Most people, when we're in our 20s, want to get on a bandwagon and go for one energy or another. And so I think that maturity is an incredible quality, you know, our individual maturity. And I feel like at 70, I'm still growing up. You know, every day I feel like I was talking to my sister-in-law, who's 79, about it. And, you know, we were saying, okay, what's good about getting old? And she didn't mention maturity. And I said, what about maturing? Like, she said, well, do you think I really have? And I said, yeah, totally. And I explained to her these subtle ways that she's maturing. And, you know, I think also in our young adulthood, it's often hard to feel that we're maturing, you know. So I think noting the maturation process and loving it, applauding it, praising it, enhancing it, augmenting it, however we can, really helps us mature. And that's ultimately what we need to do. If we're maturing as individuals, then we'll mature as a species.
Mm.
You know, it's just a tipping point.
Totally. I love that. I love how what happens on the individual level inherently gets
Contributes.
brought. Yeah.
It's every 2 cents, you know? Every drop in the bucket is a drop in the bucket.
Absolutely. And for people listening, what are some of the subtle signs
Of
that you?
maturing.
Yeah.
Oh God, that's a boring answer.
Oh, really?
Do you really want? I mean, think about it, because we like big, dramatic.
I know, right?
Yeah, and it's not that. I mean, you know, I have a friend that's my age that's been very big and dramatic all her life, and she's maturing through that, and she has to. She wouldn't do it if she didn't have to, but finally she has to. And it's hard work. It's hard work. And, you know, same thing at the other end of the spectrum. In the middle, it's a little easier. You know, in the middle, you can go, oh, last year I would have really gotten mad about this. And I didn't lose my temper. And I mean, there's getting mad is a clear measurement, and then there's clinging to things that are clearly bad for us, you know, and letting go of things that aren't serving us. And that's, you know, for most people, a very slow, complex process, and they only like to talk about the successes, and by only seeing the successes, they set themselves up for yet another failure, and that's terribly discouraging.
Yeah. Yeah. And there's some shame there too.
Shame is inherent in the human existence. You know, psychoanalysis believes in the positive aspect of shame, that's how we teach children. Oh, we don't do that. That's not good.
What do you think of that? Do you think there's some truth there, or
no?
I don't think we need shame.
I don't, but the alternative is very subtle and most people can't pull it off. For example, I am going to violate my 5-year-old granddaughter's confidentiality now, with the hopes that your listeners will respect and not judge. So I was trying to get her into her car seat, and she goes, and this girl, I mean, she is a force and smart as a whip. And she looks at me and she goes, I'll get in my car seat if I can touch your nipple. And I said, what? Did somebody say that to you at school today? Like, you know, I was like, where did this come from? It didn't come from anything external. She just had a lot of curiosity about nipples. So we spent the 20-minute drive from her school to her house discussing nipples. She had so many questions. You know, I said, nipples are not that big of a deal. Like, look around. Men and boys can take their shirts off anywhere and show their nipples. We're not supposed to, you know. And then she said, I'm really hot. Can I take my shirt off? I said, sure. You know, we're driving down the highway. And, you know, she knows I'll let her take her shirt off at any time that's relatively private. You know, so I don't think I needed to shame her for that.
Right. And I'm so glad that you didn't, because it's really those moments where the core shame about bodies gets developed and ingrained.
Yeah.
And what work it is to undo that in adulthood.
Yeah.
Essentially, embodiment is our natural state.
It's our natural state.
Yes.
But we are so good at training ourselves out of it. And the training starts early. So then what I call embodiment practice is a particular practice that I've developed over, well, really my whole life. You know, I remember when I started in my teens, but I didn't call it that. But just the permission, let's do it all together now. Feel your body, feel your breath. Let go of controlling your breath and your body. And your voice too, if you feel like making noise. I'm not going to do anything big or loud. Let go of your breath, let go of your voice. Feel the sensations in your body and give them permission to move, to breathe, to sound. If they want to, no pressure. No pressure on anything. If you can't find the permission easily, open your mouth and keep your mouth open for long enough. I'm holding my mouth open because many people have to. Until you feel that in-breath that I just made. You feel an involuntary inhalation. So you're not pulling the breath in like this. You're not pushing the breath out like this. You're just letting go until the breath comes in on its own, like you just heard me do for the listeners. Yeah. And then once you're letting go of this frontal lobe, high brain, cortical control of the breath, conscious control of the breath, then it's so much easier to give your body permission to move or rest as it wants to. So I'm moving more for the listeners, but just gentle kind of rocking spinal stuff. But some of you listening and watching might, need to yell or jump up and down, or, you might be sitting on a lot of feeling, or lay down, or, stretch, or go for a walk. Yeah. So by practicing listening and giving permission, which is really important, just the listening isn't enough. People listen to their bodies and keep control over them, as the viewers can see that I'm doing now. Listening, but I'm not allowing. I'm maintaining my presentation of who I think I should be to the world. Then I have to let it go and shake it out because it's costly. And that's what we all do, sadly, right now, most of the time. People are doing that. And so you actually have to practice just being yourself. Just being a human being, being a human animal, doing what you do. No big deal.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I do embodiment practice, I feel like a little high, or I just feel a little spacey, or like, whoa, this is different. What would you say to someone to do with that?
Well, that's very common. And what you're changing the oxygen level in your brain. So you're oxygenating your brain a little bit more. Or, oftentimes we're over-oxygenated, and, then we're bringing up the carbon dioxide a bit. There's those two things, but it's also you've changed your habitual brain state. So you have to train your brain to be fluid, to breathe organically, but still be able to think clearly.
Mm-hmm.
and then you have to habituate to that.
Mm-hmm.
So for you, I would say, I think you're over oxygenating a little bit. So just move a little bit more to burn up that oxygen. Don't breathe less. Move more.
You said you started doing embodiment practice as a teen, but you didn't call it that. Maybe you didn't really identify or consciously say you were doing anything.
No, I didn't.
What was that like for you?
Well, it was a very particular circumstance. We'd had a terrible trauma in our family, and my younger brother was paralyzed and mute. Not severely mute, but he just wasn't talking, and he was in shock. And we were walking across a country road, and I said, we can do whatever we want right now. And I started like moving just weird, just throwing my body around this road and trying to encourage him to move through his shock, And it didn't work, but it worked for me.
Yeah. And that's where your intuition just led you there to moving your body.
I think I was just so concerned for him, Yeah, so it was purely intuitive, but it wasn't conscious intuition.
Right.
I think I was just watching him suffer and feeling like, I gotta help this kid. And knowing that I wasn't suffering as much as he was. So that was all I was conscious of. But yeah, just out of the freaking blue. I think out of my body. I think I was a very kinesthetic person. But we didn't have sports for girls back then. We had cheerleading and gymnastics. And they wouldn't let me do cheerleading because I was too bad.
You were a bad
I was
kid?
acting out as a teenager.
Okay.
I was not a reputable, well-behaved child. And gymnastics I could get into for like a few minutes, but it was too controlled for me.
Yeah.
So, so I'd have these spurts of like being kind of brilliant physically, like I could win the race once, I could do like a flip, on the uneven bars once, but I couldn't replicate it.
Interesting.
Yeah, because there was too much like stricture on me. It was I didn't want to do it in this really controlled way.
Yeah. Right.
So, I just thought I was kind of bad at things. And that same brother, he would I remember he counted one time, I couldn't get up water skiing 64 times. And it was just...
Well, that's really hard. Water skiing's hard.
Well, he could do it, easily.
Yeah.
And I couldn't. And, part of it, why I couldn't was because I was being watched and judged and,
right.
Not encouraged,
right.
So, but that's what it was like to be a girl back then, or to be a boy that wasn't particularly physical or kinesthetic. I mean, that was really bad.
Right.
To be a girl that wasn't physical worked.
Socially, that was more acceptable.
Yeah, it was totally acceptable. It was almost better.
Right.
It was better for all the girls to be not that bright and not that physical.
Yeah, right. I want to ask you a question about something you said. You said conscious intuition.
Yeah.
So do you differentiate between unconscious intuition and conscious intuition?
Yeah. I mean, think about it. Doesn't that happen in your life where you have a thought and it's like, oh, that's a good idea, or that's true. And then other things that just pop out of you without any thought involved.
Yes. You know how I differentiate that as channeling is the unconscious intuition
Yeah.
versus
Yeah.
intuition.
Yeah. I mean, who knows what we're channeling? I mean, we can channel the conscious stuff too. Sometimes that feels more like a download to me when the thought comes. When it just pops out of my body, I can usually feel the genesis of it more. When it's just a thought or a visual image, a verbal thought or a visual image, that almost feels more intuitive to me. I mean, more channeling or receiving or,
Fascinating.
Yeah. When I wrote my last book, I didn't have a definition for spirituality. And it was about spirituality. So it was called Heart Open, Body Awake, 4 Steps to Embodied Spirituality. But I didn't have a definition. Even when it was published, I was still definitionless. And the reason for that is because any definition I found alienated somebody. I mean, it alienates people just to use the word spirituality, But now I feel like really what I was talking about is just feeling part of something bigger than ourselves. And in the book, I call it entering the unitive state. But, we could just as well call it God, But it's recognizing that I am a part of this vast universe on a scientific level. I'm not separate from it. I'm part of it. And yet I am also a unique moment of time and space within it. And then if we go all the way to God as all that is, we're part of that, the God within. Most theistic religions talk about the God within. So for me, the most beautiful aspect of embodiment practice is cultivating that unitive state. And I'll talk us through it. So if you get in some position where your spine is free to breathe and move, all the way from the tip of your tail, through the crown of your head, and everything in between, that you can feel your breath moving through you and moving your spine as it breathes. So this is what I call core flow, that there's energy coming up and out and down and out the pelvic floor at all times. All sorts of physiology, breath, movement, energy, digestion, breath, endocrine hormonal flow and flux. And when we feel that, and the heart, most importantly, along that channel, when we're feeling the pulsations of our heart and everything else, everything in our body pulsates, every cell, every organ, Bone cells, the living part of the cell pulsates, and that reverberates through the bony matrix, the mineral matrix. And all of those pulsations blend like the most amazing drumming circle, 37 trillion cells. And then that blends with the pulsation of the earth and of every organism on the earth. And it ripples out into space beyond our atmosphere. And who knows what happens out there. and once we feel any pulsation, if you can find the pulsation of your heart by putting your hand on your heart or your carotid artery or your radial artery, once you find the pulsation and rest into it and allow that rippling out and blending to happen. That's what I call entering the pulsatory world. And that's a very deep unitive state. But the key is staying rooted in our core flow, because a lot of times when people think about something bigger than themselves, the universe, God, any, spiritual, non-physical beings, they get out of their bodies. They get into space and they uproot, as I am now. So how do we stay rooted in our core flow and feel our awareness expand and contract as it does? And to go back to the drumming circle analogy, then it's like having a jazz saxophone player doing a solo, because our awareness doesn't pulsate rhythmically most of the time. Most of the time it gathers and then it goes way out.
Right.
And then maybe it stays out for like a really long time. And then it gathers again and, then it gets small and we forget about it and we lose our awareness. And so that's what's most important for me in my life and helping others. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you.
You're so welcome.
Thank you. I love how simple it is. Hand on your heart. Feel your spine as this channel for your breath.
And your whole core.
Your whole core, right? Head to tail, head pelvis.
Yeah, pelvic floor, tail, out the crown of your head, in the crown of your head.
Yeah, it feels like something, when I put my hand on my heart, it's like, oh, I could just do this anytime, all the time. Enter the pulse.
Yeah, and then when you get good at it, you can feel the pulse without touching anything. But, it's physiologically different for different people. That's easier for some people and really hard for some people. But still, even if it's really hard, you can do it eventually.
Totally.
It just takes practice and awareness. And then to live from that, everything changes.
What does it look like for you in your life to live from that?
Well, when I came in your house, you had a Post-it that said something about something in flow.
I let my energy be in flow.
I let my energy be in flow. That's what it means. So rather than controlling my breath, my movement, my emotions, my behavior from a high brain, cortical, frontal lobe place, consciously thinking, I shouldn't do that. I should do that.
Wow. Just not shitting on yourself.
Staying in flow all the time. I'll tell you a story.
Okay.
It's another extreme story, inappropriate. You want me to tell you?
Yes, and I have a question for you too.
Yeah, but hold the question because this will help the listeners. So, a family member by marriage that is, a lovely human being, but also very sexist and has a drinking problem, grabbed me around my waist and pulled me to him and said, he was really drunk, "How you doing, May May?" That's my grandmother's name. And I said, I looked up at him, he's a lot bigger than me, really strong, great athlete, and I said, "You can suck my dick." And my kids heard me say that. And they said, "Mom, you have no filter. I can't believe you said that." And I said, "Actually, I have more of a filter than anybody you know." And I said that on purpose. But it didn't come from a conscious forethought place. But my brain had cognized this guy as totally inappropriately trying to sexually dominate me. And telling him to suck my dick, when he's pretty sure I don't have one, was perfect, and it worked. And it didn't cause a breach in our relationship, and he stopped drinking for a few weeks, and, it was a good thing, in my assessment. We never talked about it. But I developed the ability to not shut myself down and control myself by experimenting with my embodiment. And so, in my personal view, that was an extremely skillful move I made. There was a lot of finesse there, which I can imagine that nobody else would think about it that way. But I do. So that's an example.
I love that example. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Right, and especially for people who have been people pleasers or fawn as their first response, to do something like that, to just be in this, get more used to this flow state of what's just most true for you, and then be able to bring that to a situation where in the past maybe you would have people pleased or fawned or shrunk down.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you got to be old to be able to, I had to have been old to be able to pull that off.
I want to challenge myself and listeners to do it right now, no matter how old you are. Something, maybe you're not going around telling people to suck your dick, but to be so authentically yourself, no matter who is challenging you, no matter what the situation is.
Yeah, including not having anything to say, I mean, I think it takes a lot of being dumbfounded, I can't believe that person just did that.
Right.
And staying in your body through that moment, and then later thinking, what do I wish I had said? That I worked at that for decades.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I had a boss that gave a really good talk, and he didn't like me. I was I was not submissive and quiet enough for this person. And he gave a really good talk, and I was trying to extend to him, and I said, "That was awesome, thank you." And he said, "Oh, I'm glad you approved." You know, like I shouldn't have even commented on his performance. And I looked at him and I said, oh, that's not how I meant it at all. And just turned and walked away.
Yeah.
So I didn't tell him to suck my dick. You know, it wouldn't have worked.
That wouldn't have worked.
Yeah.
But that's another beautiful example of just staying so with yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, so powerful.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, you know, it set him back a little bit. Mm-hmm. He, I don't know what he got consciously, but energetically, he got a little bit for a moment. It was like, oh, I was being kind of rude, you know.
Right, holding up the mirror.
Yeah, I don't think he thought that thought, but I think he was just surprised that I responded. Didn't fawn, didn't please.
Right.
You know, and I certainly knew how. I'd certainly had decades of experience just saying, oh, yes, what I loved about it was, you know, you were so clear about blah, blah, blah. Just admire that so much in you.
So uncomfortable to see you show up that way. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know that what that's like in my body too, and I see it in people, and witnessing it, I'm like, I don't know if people realize how uncomfortable it is to actually be around somebody when they are fawning and people pleasing.
Yeah.
It doesn't do the thing that your system thinks it will do.
Yeah. Yeah, I was consulting with somebody and they were telling me about a situation they were in, and their friend said, oh, you don't know who to fawn to right now. And I don't think that was a fair assessment, but it was also very powerfully illuminating, you know, because she was caught in a triangle and with two people that she had fawned a little bit with, or a lot at times. But also, I said, but you're also learning to appreciate their wisdom and give them the feedback when they are doing something right. Like I did with my boss, you know. I mean, it's very helpful to people generally, not with him, but generally to say, wow, look at you, look what you just did. And you don't have to do that in a fawning, people-pleasing way, but people get confused. You know, they can't necessarily distinguish. If you pay attention, you can feel the difference.
Right.
But you had a question.
Yes, thank you. My question was, because you were talking about core flow and just letting your energy be, just letting yourself be, letting your brain be fluid. And I was thinking about throughout the day when, you know, if you're working at a desk and then you're doing housework and things where it actually requires your body to be a certain way. How could you bring core flow to that activity?
Well, what I do, I mean, I do avoid working at a desk for long periods of time. And I can now. And I hope I'll never write another book that requires me to sit for hours and hours. But what I used to do, and I still do when I have to, is I sit in front of the computer and I close my eyes and I open. And I feel the core flow. And for people that are listening right now, I put my hands out in open receiving gesture. You know, and and sometimes I just think, you know, let whatever wants to come, you know, something like that. I'm here to receive, you know. Yeah, sometimes I ask for help, like, you know, what should I write? Tell me what to write. Tell me where to go with this. And so I establish the core flow, and then when I lose it, which I don't usually notice right away when I lose it, but sometimes I notice when I lose it before something starts to hurt. But when something hurts, I know I've lost it. So then I just do it again. I stop what I'm doing and I pray, meditate, find my core flow, do embodiment practice. You know, even if it's just sitting in my chair for 3 seconds, whatever it takes. But if that doesn't work, got to get out of the chair.
Yep.
So that's what I do.
Thank you.
Yeah. And you've got to pace yourself so that you're doing things enough in advance that you can afford to take breaks.
Right, to be
conscious. If you leave it till the last minute, you can't do that. You made it this far, I'm impressed.
You're committed to embodiment.
Yeah, maybe you will become committed. Maybe you weren't and you will become. Be well.
Mwah.
Be well.
I hope that you had such a good time listening and watching. And if you made it this far, like she said, you are committed. Or maybe you will become committed. And I'm impressed if you made it this far. So thank you for sticking around to the end. I want to share with you a few more things before you go. That every Saturday for the past month or so, I've been doing these free virtual events. They're so fun. It's basically the pre-class class for my 12-week course, start to finish, where I walk you through different processes to get really clear on what matters to you, and then you can then bring that intention into the class if you choose to do it. So if you want to come, add your email to my newsletter list and you will get the link for the next one. I would love to see you there. It's so fun, it's so simple, and it's just such a good way to feel connected to yourself, connected to your heart, your purpose, your calling, what matters most to you in this world. And I guarantee you will feel a boost of your joy, a boost of love, just in the hour that we spend together. So definitely check that out if you're interested. And I hope to see you at the next one. Again, don't forget to follow the podcast, leave a comment, leave a review. I'm sending you so much love, and I'll see you in the next one.